Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Jessica Henry and I'm so happy to have you with me today. I am in the Cleveland Rocky River Reserve Park area, and I've got this beautiful waterfall scene here. Before I get started, I want to show you what I have going on here in this whole scene. And I'm going to capture that scene up that way with the bridges and the waterfall. I'm going to jump in and get going. All right, you guys, don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I love your comments. Okay, let's get going.
Through the woods in search of the elusive Jessica Henry. There she is, there she is. Looks like she's found a site for one of her fantastic paintings.
And I've got a 7x11 canvas here. This is another one by Masterpiece, and they're panels. I absolutely love them, so check them out. I'll put a link down below. So this is my typical setup today. They're open box easel. This is the smallest one, 8x10. I have all my standard colors out. I have titanium white, cadmium yellow pale, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, phthalo green, and alizarin crimson.
I'm beginning this plein air study by toning the canvas with a little bit of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. Next, I'm going to be drawing out my composition onto the canvas. I know that I want the bridge in the background and the rocks and the water flowing right at the viewer, so I will use the side shorelines to support the center of the whole waterfalls and as they flow back to the bridge.
So I do still have my microphone on, so I may every now and then just talk a little bit about what I'm doing and see what happens. For now, I'm just laying in the composition and where I want these features to go and how I want to lead the eye in through the painting. So this will make up the water part of the painting, and the waterfall will be back here, and then it will lead way back to these arches way in the background over here. So I'm going to film a little bit of me working out. This is the workout basic of the composition. I'm going to do a little bit of me drawing, and then I'll stop the filming and come back and show you a little bit more of the finished layout of the whole design. This painting is all about the progression of values and that movement of light. Okay, so I've got this pretty much laid out where I want it to be. What I'm going to do now is focus on just laying in some of the background values and colors. One thing you really want to be cognizant of when you're working with values in your plein air is comparing everything to your darkest dark.
When painting foliage in this situation back here, I'm starting with the brighter green just to isolate the exact color note that I'm looking for. After I get these in place, then I will put in the darker shadows underneath. And you'll see at the end of this video, I'll pop in just a few highlights over the darker shadows just to make it look like the foliage is on top of the shadows. And here is just a little bit darker green as I'm just kind of building that up. A little bit of interest. I don't want to put too much detail back there, but just enough to make it interesting and draw the eye. I am painting in these brighter springy greens, and I'm using cadmium yellow, medium or pale, with a little bit of phthalo green and some ultramarine blue. A little bit more blue will get it a little darker green. You can add a little more burnt sienna too to really darken that green and warm it up and make it look a little bit more natural. Painting rocks in a waterfall can seem overwhelming and slightly intimidating because there are so many different value changes and shifts in the darks and the grays and middle tones and so forth. The best technique that I have found to work on rocks of this nature is just simply to squint down and work from your darkest, then your next lightest from your darks, and so forth, and then at the end put on the white sparkles of the water. So as I squint down, and you can see in the back there, I put the darker patches of those values for the distant rocks. And then where the water is coming over and breaking over that passage there, I made it just a little bit lighter gray. It's not as light as it's going to be in the end because I will be putting the sparkles from the water cresting over that ridge. So squinting down, I'm trying to look at the color that's underneath the white splashes. And then of course I have the darks. So just passages at a time, little pieces at a time, you can work your way through a complicated waterfall. As I'm working now on adding the white highlights and splashes to the background there, I'm careful not to make them too garishly white because they are further in the background, and remember, everything up close to you is going to be receiving the strongest value contrast. But back there, we know that the water is splashing and it's making a whitish color, so I'm adding a little bit of yellow ochre to neutralize it and make it have that more of that appearance of water splashing. In some of the parts, it was predominantly yellow ochre in the water. I had stopped the filming a little bit to go through and work on some of the water and the rocks in that background area. And I just did some very gentle, just streaking the water over the crest to make it have the appearance of falling. And then now I'm starting to work on the rocks. And my approach for doing the rocks is very simple. I just start with a clean, dark shadow color, and then I'm creating the mass and the shape that the rocks will sit in. And then over that, I will lay in clean, sharp passages of middle tone, as you can see here, always altering my angle just a little bit to indicate the flat surface of the rocks.
So when I'm working on the water in this background area where there's reflection on top and sparkles, I want to get the color underneath that I see first, and then I'll add those highlights on top. Always work from the background to the foreground.
In this passage over here by the bank of the river, it's not getting the sky reflecting in it, so it's mostly picking up the color of the water and the trees. So it makes this really beautiful shift from that sky blue reflection to this green that is mostly yellow ochre, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and some sienna. And I'm just laying that in and letting those two passages of green and blue gently mix. And I also don't want a strong separation from the water to the rocks either, because I don't want to draw the eye over there as much as possible. So I'll keep those a little bit more muted and quiet, again allowing the eye to stay focused in the center. I really liked the use of that small little tiny waterfall right on the surface of the water, because it had a way of just adding some texture and some variety to that passage in the middle. And I didn't want it to be a strong, solid, dark line, because it really doesn't show up that way in nature. And so by putting that long, medium, and shortish line in there, and then you'll see eventually I'll put the water splashing over the top of it. It just has a nice way to break up that. If I'd done a solid line going across, the eye wouldn't have had the freedom to move beyond that. When you see a predominant shift on my canvas from dark to light, that is when a cloud is going over the sun. And it is just one of the challenges that you face when plein air painting is the shifting light, not just on your scene, but also on your canvas. And there's really nothing you can do about it, but you just keep plowing forward.
All right, well that wraps up this lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate it. All right, you guys, see you next week. Bye-bye.